And I think that last point is the best point that can be made, is this is a live experiment. The consultation is now. And the reason it has to be in place is because I don't understand that. When we were looking at this, and engineers and officers were coming up with the designs, and a lot of the ideas for some of where filters should be actually came from residents themselves who had historic problems on their roads. And I'll just say, one of them you mentioned that didn't have a historic problem, but Belmont has the amount of people on Belmont that have been crying out for it, and admittedly now are going, what have you done to us, right? So I'm not saying, we're certainly not saying it's perfect, but what we're saying is, in order to understand these schemes, you have to put the boxes in, you have to put the filters in, so you can go, oh right, this road is much nicer now, or this is much worse, right? Now, what I would say is a lot of the issues that people have been bringing up, which is about sitting in traffic for longer on those roads, and this is just awful, and there's fumes pumping out. Absolutely, that is true, right? And actually, in a way, that is part of the design in the first instance. So in the early days, because as Seema was saying, we're trying to change people's behaviours, and we didn't just for a moment just talk about the people coming out of the borough. They're out of the borough and they're leaving the borough, and there's a lot of cars. We're talking tens of thousands of cars, right, a day, or per road in some cases, right? Now, the reality is that behaviour doesn't change overnight. So how do you get people to change their behaviour? I mean, we've all probably got some bad habits. Some have drink too much tea, do something, watch too much TV. Right? If you're going to change that habit, someone doesn't just come up to you and go, actually, you know what, you watch too much TV. Can you stop doing that? And you go, yeah, I know I do, yeah. Okay, and then the next day you don't watch any more TV. It just doesn't happen, right? We're human beings. It takes time for that to change. So if you're going to get that driver who could be going on the main road, who could be staying on the A406, right, but it's going, actually I can cut through Haringey and I might as well, the fumes don't bother me, right, they might have an impact on us, but they don't bother that driver. We want that driver to take a different choice. He's not going to take a different choice if nothing changes. They have to see that actually, you know what, this is awful, I don't want to drive through Haringey anymore, I might as well stay on the A406. Now, unfortunately, the reality is the pain for that driver, and it's such a crying shame that it is the way that it is, the pain for that driver means that there is pain for us as well. Now, what we've got to hope for is that that pain is very short-lived, right? So, now, what we've seen elsewhere, now, admittedly, we are talking maybe weeks and months in some cases. We're hoping, obviously, and if we do see it going on in certain places, and like I said, we're looking at making changes where we can in the short term anyway. But, what we don't want is for local residents to be feeling that pain continually. And at that point, we will go, no, it's not working, right? Because actually, it's got to work for us as well. So, I won't say more than that, other than that point, is that a lot of these issues that we're experiencing and that you're crying out about are issues that are related to the beginning of schemes. And what we can say, and I'll just leave it on this point, is we didn't come up with this in Haringey, right? We didn't it wasn't the brainchild of an officer down in Station Road. These schemes have been, in fact, a lot of the biggest schemes happened in New York over 10 years ago. New York is full of them now. They're in Bogota, they're in Barcelona, France, Norway, and across London, right? In fact, Haringey is quite late to the party, but the one reason why they're everywhere and why we're seeing these low traffic calming schemes across the world is because they've been shown to work. That the volumes of cars have been reducing, and pollution levels have been reducing, and collision levels have been reducing, and health has been, and well-being have been increasing. And this is, we've got a lot of health issues in this borough, lots. Mental health issues to do with inactivity. We've got a mental health epidemic in this borough. Lots of people suffering from depression. But a lot of people are stuck in their homes. A lot of people don't want to get out because actually the road it's too busy, it's too noisy, it's too fumey. A lot of people, and so this is the last point I'll make, is part of what we're trying to change is also local journeys that people could take in other ways. Right, so there are lots of people, and there are people in my family who are also culprits of this. Is jump in the car to take their kids to the school that is there. You can walk to that school, right? Now the reality is that's not good for those kids either. And 35% of Year 6 pupils in this borough, 35% of Year 6 are overweight or obese. Right? That's lack of exercise. It's bad diet as well, but it's lack of exercise. So what we're saying is there are all kinds of benefits that we're trying to achieve. And I will keep coming back to it because I know that obviously, you know, the people, you're in this room because it's hurting and you're feeling a lot of the pain. That, you know, we do want to make sure that ultimately this works. And if it does work, then it works for everyone. But, and I'll leave it on this one point, as Seema said, this is a live consultation. We are listening to you. That's why we're sitting here. We'll make sure that you've got the email addresses and stuff that you can email to the council to make your objections, to make your comments. They're all going to feed into the final thought, the final results of this. And let's put it this way, if none of it is working, even in 6 months' time, 6 months, if it's just all complete gridlock and it's not working, we'll have a rethink, right? Let's get that absolutely straight. We're listening to you and we've got lots of data capture. We're looking at the volumes of traffic, we're looking at where the bottlenecks are, we're looking at where we're looking at the air quality, and from that we can then make a really measured and balanced decision. And again, that is for the good of all residents, young, old, everyone.
Sorry, Father Joe. Can I just ask Jim one question? Sorry, Jim.
Yes.
I got distracted when you were speaking because Father Joe, I'm blaming Father Joe.
Right.
Can I just ask, when you said the ambulance was struggling to get through to Mannock Road, is it Hawke Park Road where the...
Yes, yes,
okay.
yes. Right.
Just so that, can we lock that down because that's
Locked it
actually...
completely.
So it's got the bollards there.
The bollard in the middle and the two beds.
Okay, so if we could just lock that down. And here is a really good example that actually, because they're posts. All of the fire, ambulance and police, firstly, they help design this.
Yeah, but why did they put a bollard in the middle of it?
Yeah.
That's the question I'm asking.
Okay, so I hear that. So I don't want you to think that we designed this without the police and the fire and the ambulance co-designed
Well,
this.
whatever they've done,
I get
there'll be no
if I
bollard
can
there
just,
anyway.
yeah, I get it. I guess what I'm trying to say is even with the police and the fire and the ambulance agreeing to put in a bollard there, if it's not working and you've seen something that has stopped an ambulance, I think that's a really serious thing. And all of the police and ambulance, so that everyone knows, if you are a police car, an ambulance or fire engine, you can drive through any one of these cameras.
Oh, I should imagine so,
But
yes.
you can't drive through a bollard.
No.
Obviously, I figured that one out myself, George, don't worry, I'm on it. If that bollard just needs to be changed to a camera, and that makes that...
Well, then it's a different story, isn't it?
Absolutely, and they're the things we need to hear about, and that's a small tweak, and that could be done pretty fast. So we're going to go back to the ambulance, the police, and from this meeting, we're going to go back to them and say, was there an incident? What happened? And you know what? Don't risk it. Just remove the bollard, put a camera up there, and then it's done, because it's not worth it. Nice pretty flower box, but we can do better. So thank you so much, Jim, for that piece of really good feedback, and it shows what we can do to change something.
And the other thing is with the cyclist lanes. The cyclist bikes are not using them at all.
Oh, that one I'm definitely going to put in. I can't ride a bike.